Hello and welcome to another edition of Scions of the Southland. As always, I am Akshay and joining me once again from beautiful Chicago, Illinois, is Mr. Jake Grant. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Can't complain. It's a little icy, a little snowy here, but we're holding in. It's a nice change from the Atlanta winter of rain, so you know I'll get that soon enough.
Hey, we get 2 weeks of freezing cold every year. It's fine.
Yeah, I always get to feel how do you say? I'm not gonna say self-absorbed. That's bad.
Right at
Holier
home.
than thou. Yeah, holier than thou about the weather.
Hey, at least we salt our roads now.
That is smart. I do appreciate that being a driver now in Atlanta, but did the shoveling stuff like that, and got to watch actually kind of a lot of basketball today. So it was kind of a tech day, I guess.
So we had the double header on ACC Network. We had the women's basketball game versus Notre Dame, followed by the men's basketball game hosting Wake Forest. We'll get to that. We also had a bunch of football news roll in. And we'll get to that as well. So, Mr. Grant, let's throw on our usual 35 minutes on the clock here, and let's get going. What say you?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right, three, two, let's go. Women's basketball this week, winless, 0-2. There's really no polite way to put this. The first game was on New Year's Eve versus number three, North Carolina State, and we talked about that for 2 weeks running. Um, that was always going to be a tough game, and North Carolina State kind of came out shooting and shooting well.
Yeah, we always expected that. Honestly, Tech reeled them in at the end. I didn't. I don't know how much of that was because we got good or because they got tired or whatever. I think the biggest expectation for this was we beat them in their building last year, but doing that again was always going to be a tall order. Um, I don't know. We didn't look bad. Or correction, I listened to this on the radio because thanks RSNs. Um, but from the sound end of things, they sounded all right. I don't know. It's a little bit harder to judge when you can't actually, use the eye test. But
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
single
this was
digits,
one.
good.
Yeah, I think this is one where they played well. It's just that NC State played better. And so it's just, when you're playing a national contending team and you're on the tier of conference contender, there's still going to be a gap, right? A lot of that difference in statistics is accounted for, maybe talent, maybe something else, but there's still that massive gap between the two programs. And I think it's sort of a benchmark. I think how we think of in a certain way the Clemson game is a benchmark for the football program, at least how competitive it is in that game, in terms of where the program is. I think the NC State game, and games against these other top four, top three opponents in the conference, who also happen to be national contenders, those fall into the same category. And in this case, it was a reasonable loss. I think it was by less than 20. I I'm fine with it, honestly.
Yeah. Again, I think we got a lot of hope from again beating them last year in their building, but we were an older team last year too, really. So I don't know. The NC State loss isn't the one that I go, I wish I had that one back.
But the one that you might wish you had back is this afternoon's game, versus Notre Dame, which was a 2-point loss for Tech. This one, I know you were listening to it on the radio, perchance, but I was watching this one on TV, and this was end to end, really fun. It was like watching a really good soccer game where both teams were really into it, both teams were going for it, and especially during the first half of that third quarter when nobody on the court could miss a shot. It was really fun and really stressful. It just kind of came down to possession by possession, um, defensive execution, and at a certain point, Tech could not generate stops late in the game. And then they clanked a potential game tying shot off the rim. So,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they had the ball in the right hands for who you want to be taking the last shot. If don't get me wrong, but I believe it was Latinen, right?
mhm.
Um, again, a little hard when you're on the radio, but what was I going to say? That's what you need. They had Kira Fletcher back this week, and you really like to see that too. I don't know. Okay, the biggest nonsense about this is why did we play Notre Dame twice in their building?
Yeah, I think we noted that when the schedule came out.
I
This is
thought it was
something
a
that,
typo until they got on the
yeah,
phone yesterday.
it's weird. Um,
Like that can't be an Indiana COVID thing. There are no COVID laws in Indiana. Well, there's some, but you know what I mean. Like it's not like we're talking about New York here or California.
so here's my guess because we like we were saying we had the women's basketball game and the men's basketball game back to back, but in times past, especially when I was on campus, when we did the back to backs, the women's game was usually at noon and the men's game was usually at 6. In this case, the women's game was at what 4, and then the men's game started at 6. So in order to preserve and fill the TV slots, they might have bumped around the schedule.
Yeah, but like still going to their building twice doesn't make sense. Why not send them to McCamish for the opener? Because they're not on our schedule again.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to make excuses
I'm
for
just
a
we're
media
not
conglomerate here.
question just because of the nature. You and I, we're not ACC network executives. We're not ACC folks, but it's still weird, right? Like I can't imagine. I can't picture this happening in basketball, women's basketball, even tennis. Like I've just never seen this before.
Oh, I'm sure if we were a Tobacco Road team, this would not have happened.
I mean, you know,
I'm not saying it. I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm not naming any names. I'm just saying.
so July 1st, right? That's when we get Jim Phillips.
Yeah, I think that's when the new year turns over, or the new academic athletic year turns
We
over.
should, we should throw him a Zoom party and see if he shows up.
I will keep that one under podcast co-host consideration.
All right, sounds bueno.
Okay, just to wrap things up on the women's basketball side, their next games are on January 7th. That will be at Little John Coliseum versus Clemson. That is 7 p.m. on ACC Network Extra, best I could find on ESPN. And then their game after that is on the 10th, hosting Virginia Tech, and that's 2 p.m. on your local RS. And let's move on to the afternoon cap, nightcap. I don't know. I need a word for that. The men's basketball game versus Wake Forest. They did play one other game, but I want to talk about the Wake Forest game while it's still fresh in our memory. This was a little bit of a boat race against a first-year head coach at Wake Forest and Steve Forbes.
Yeah, I mean, the Wake Forest game, I'll admit I jumped into about 8 minutes left in the first is when I finally got it working on the radio. That's the theme this week. But the dulcet tones of Andy Demetra didn't disappoint. What was confusing to me was by the time I did get in front of a TV, Wake Forest just didn't look up to speed in any aspect of the game. Like it did not look like we were playing an ACC team out there. And I don't know if that's because they've been on the shelf for so long or what, but I don't even know how I can judge Steve Forbes after that. Like this is just a completely new big question mark to me, you know?
Yeah, I think COVID and practice restrictions and all that sort of stuff doesn't help. And we'll talk about that in relation to football power rankings a bit. But like you, it's just been a weird year, and especially to break in a new head coach, a weird year. It's hard to evaluate it's hard to really define success in any way, shape, or form at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, they haven't even played an ACC team. I guess the one parallel, other than obviously head to head, is we both played Delaware State, so could dig into that.
The vaunted Delaware State Hornets. I will not have you slandering their good name.
Sir, I think we could never play Delaware State again, and I wouldn't really miss it, to be completely honest with you.
Fair enough. Moving, I guess, back along, the other game that was played during this week was the day before New Year's Eve, on the 30th versus UNC. 2016-17 ACC Coach of the Year, Josh Pastner. He's just back on his BS, man. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not convinced. I honestly think the ACC basketball scene, especially on the men's side, is really anybody's ball game. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Florida State and us, like we didn't beat them, but you're going to take a loss. That wasn't a beatdown by any means. So I'm not going to say I'm surprised by this result. We have an old team. We have a veteran team. We beat North Carolina last year. Like they've done this before. When and if, knocking on some wood, we get the chance to take down Duke, that's really the only team we haven't seen really any success against with Pastner. But with the ACC being wide open, UNC, you're darn right, they could get you, especially in our own building.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how Virginia's going to shake out. I don't know how Virginia Tech's going to shake out. We've kind of been hit or miss with them too, but we beat a top 5 Louisville team last year. We've kind of had at least mixed, or if not better, success with both of our home and homes each year, Clemson and Notre Dame. I don't know. Georgia Tech can shoot a 3-ball pretty well this year, enough to keep them in games. And really, as long as they're not in foul trouble, I think that's probably a recipe that could give us a lot of success in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we've been talking about year over year is limiting turnovers and making sure the big man stays out of foul trouble. And I think just from anecdotal evidence, I don't have any stats to back this up on hand, but just from anecdotal evidence, I think they've been much better about managing the load on Moses Wright now that he's basically the only big man without James Banks on the court. I think rotating him in, and even maybe the way that he's been trained to play the game has been not aggressive, but it's definitely less aggressive in the foul producing way. I would say it's not a great way of explaining that, but it's sort of the way that I'm intuiting what I'm seeing. I can't speak to the turnovers though. That's still a problem. That I don't know. I got nothing on that one.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think the next 2 games will give us another 2 interesting tests. We got Notre Dame on the road, 7 p.m. on the 6th, so that's Wednesday, and then this weekend against Louisville. Is Louisville on the road too, or no?
No, that one's at home.
8 on the 9th. Which day is the 9th?
Great question. Saturday.
Okay.
Saturday.
Ooh, I might be able to see that live. Very interesting. Go Jackets. So Louisville Saturday at home at 4 p.m. I think that's a bigger test than Notre Dame, to be completely honest. And if Tech shows up pretty well against Louisville, then who knows? We might be able to get a bye for the second year in a row. And well, we would have had one last year. Everybody listening
gestures widely at NCAA BS.
I'm accountant, but I think this is the first time we could get a bye, at least in 2 back-to-back years in quite some time. So you know what? I'll take it.
As an Atlanta sports fan, I don't like counting my chickens before they hatch. And as this, I will be cautiously optimistic and, biting my fingernails the entire way.
I
You,
uh
you don't get expectations from me.
I was gonna say I think I'm ready to be disappointed. Like I'm glad we're at the point where now I have some expectations, and I think we should have some expectations. It's an old team. They called us a veteran team on ACC Network tonight. That's we're living the year that Pastner said he was building for, and let's see if they can take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of got to wait and see because there's still what 35 games left, at least 30 games left.
Yeah, we are no, not 30. They're only playing what 27, so I think we still have like 18 or 20 left though.
Yeah, my knowledge of basketball scheduling is just non-existent.
Yeah, that's fair. I went up to the RPI tab on CBS's website, and they just updated it. Colgate played their first game, and they're 1-0, which makes
Fantastic.
them the number one RPI in the country. Essentially, by default, their trend is moving up 352 spots week over week. So
Incredible.
good for Colgate, I guess.
Good old Patriot League.
You love to see it, I guess. I'm lost. I think this is where we let that one drop.
Yeah, this is where we move on. Mr. Grant, you said you had some mention of some golf news.
Yeah, they had their qualifier. What was I gonna say? That's about that. We don't really know most of the results. Last I checked, because my source is Twitter. Hooray! So we don't really know who's coming out of it, but Georgia Tech will have a golf team and presumably a spring season. And I saw a cactus, so it sounds like they got some away time too. So
All right, seems legit. All right, well, let's move on to our lots of football news. So we have a couple different categories. Where would you like to start?
Can we get recruiting out of the way? I'm not a recruiting guy.
All right, so in recruiting news, and I'm definitely going to butcher at least one of these names. Linebacker Ayinde Ale from Maryland and flex player Kyrick McGowan from Northwestern are both transferring into Georgia Tech starting this spring. So that adds to, I think McGowan is the sixth player that was based in Georgia as a prep school athlete to transfer back into Tech this cycle. And then Ali, with the loss of David Curry in the center of the defense, he's going to be a real big help shoring that spot up. I'm trying to find some notes that are the rest of our more recruiting oriented writers talked about these two players. So I'm going to let you vamp on these guys for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this pickup from whatchamacallem, Northwestern. I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit biased. You all know I'm a Midwestern dude, but I think he was not a insignificant part of their offense this year, and we know that they had some success. And I think this is probably the thing on the recruiting trail that I'm most like, oh, guys have done stuff. Like let's get them locked in. Obviously, we'd love to have the 5-star development program started from scratch, all that good staff mumbo jumbo. But we also like seeing them pulling guys who can contribute right away. And I think these both fill a need on the offense and the defense in a safety valve role and in a, wow, this is the first time we haven't had David Curry since the Orange Bowl season role too.
I mean, I think you might be talking about potentially like the 1950s Orange Bowl season, it seems like.
Yeah, that too.
So some notes on McGowan, since that's the first one that I found first. Um, he is a matchup guy. Like he plays a lot of different positions. You can put him anywhere along at any receiving position, whether it's in the backfield, whether it's in the slot, and he will create matchup issues for the defense. And he's also really good at creating separation between defenders. Per our guys that know more than us, that was something that Tech's younger receiving core really struggled with this season. And adding that sort of veteran presence will help Tech stretch the field vertically, which is really something that they missed this season
Yeah.
because Jeff Sims did not throw deep a whole lot. Every time they tried it, it didn't work, so they stopped trying it. So adding that to the portfolio here is a big help.
Yeah. Agreed. Just that outlet right there, right quick.
And especially if you have another weapon to add as a slot receiver. I mean, you already have Nate McCollum on the roster, and you also have Jameer Gibbs out of the backfield. You add McGowan as another slot receiver. You can now go 4 wide and even 5 wide, with Gibbs going out and being another receiver with trips on one of the sides. And now you have a lot more room to work with horizontally, so you can create a lot more space both horizontally and vertically, which somewhere there's going to be an open receiver.
Yep.
Um, you're just gonna waltz into it. It has to happen in that case.
Yeah. I agree. You're a little more schematic than I would be, but yeah, good
You
point.
give me a little bit too much credit, I would say. But moving on to Ali, which is I think the pronunciation I'm going to go with. Ali, he has 2 years of eligibility left, so that's really good, especially when you're losing a defensive leader like Curry. You get a guy that has the experience, and you also have him for a couple years in order to train him up and train him up not only schematically but also as a defensive leader. Um, one of our guys notes he was all Big Ten in 2019, but because of injury, he only played 3 games in 2020. I think for us, we're looking at a guy that just it's plug and play with David Curry's slot or one of the other linebackers alongside Curry, um, where he could have an instant impact the minute that he steps onto campus, steps onto the field. This different from the other guys that Tech has grabbed from the transfer portal. Ali is from Maryland, so this is actually you're pulling from a different place. You're getting a guy that maybe wasn't happy with the situation in Maryland. Obviously, we don't know that. We only know that he's coming here, and we're thankful for that. But you're getting a guy from a different part of the country, different program, that's coming into coming into our program, and um, all Big Ten isn't nothing, so I'm happy about it.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, we should stop talking about stuff that neither of us can talk in detail about and keep moving down the chain here. Just a couple of other news items before we wrap up here. Talking about the NFL draft, David Curry did declare, like we talked about last week. Jalen Camp has also declared. He was also invited to the NFLPA's Collegiate Bowl. That actually is not being staged in person this year because of pandemic. So we'll sort of see what his involvement entails there. In terms of other awards around the country and around the region, Presley Harvin III was named a consensus All-American, which is super awesome. That is, I believe, the first one since Calvin Johnson, if I read the press release correct. Or correctly. We are still waiting on Ray Guy results. I have no idea when those will be out, but hopefully he snags that one too. And then lastly, Jeff Sims and Jameer Gibbs were mentioned as part of the Athletic Atlanta's 21 stars for 2021, with Sims at number 20 and Gibbs at number 17. So yeah, that about rounds out, the award circuit. Any thoughts there?
Um, yeah, Presley being up against two rivals for the Ray guy definitely has me This is a win or lose situation. There's no like
It's black and white.
the other guy,
It's very black and white. This.
Yep. But we'll have to ride that one out, I guess.
Yeah, that's just something that we're gonna have to feel our way through. A couple of other end of season notes. Final SP Plus rankings came out earlier today. Tech finished 73rd in the nation with the 81st ranked offense, 60th ranked defense, and 108th ranked special teams. Just for some context, their ranks in 2019, they finished 111th overall with the 117th ranked offense, 71st ranked defense, and 119th ranked special teams. So, just based on those numbers, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of surprised special teams was up, to be honest. Oh wait, no. Am I reading this right?
Yes.
Okay.
You're reading it right.
I was gonna say I saw the -1 point. I was like, okay, what? But yeah, no, I'm a little bit surprised special teams is up, especially considering the start of the year we had there. In general, other stuff saw incremental improvement, and I like that. What was I going to say? I still would like to see more from this defense. We hear a lot about how it's such a transition, yada, 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 transition, biggest of all time. But the defense is not running the triple option. So
it never did. What a surprise.
I will say it's above the offense. It's ahead of the offense. Good. I expect it. I would like to see more improvement. And I think we did see that. They learned how to put together a full game of being good at defense. And there was definitely a couple games that they were if not the sole, but a big reason why we were still hanging around, even with a chance to win late. Offense, big step up. I think we get pretty seriously knacked by a couple of our key problems, but having a non-freshman quarterback who has actual time to learn the system and learn how to, be a quarterback, I think that'll be great. I'm not going to say that we're going to go, 12-0 next year or anything like that, but I think a 5 or 6 win season is eminently possible, and I think would be another big step. Listen, if we can go from 111 to 73, that is a 38 spot improvement. If we do that again, you're at 31, or is that math is hard?
30, that's a 38 spot improvement. You're talking about 30, 35.
Oh, okay. Wait, really?
35.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, I pulled out the calculator. Wow, this is bad.
Wow, you're the one that's still getting an engineering degree. This is really bad.
I have another semester of school left. I better get on this. But no, if we make the same improvement, we'll be at 35, and I don't think anybody would be arguing that is not a smashing success. Granted, it gets more marginal to improve, but hey, if we can do half of that, then we'll be between 50 and 60, and I'll take that too. So,
yeah, I have in the show notes here. I think we kind of expected this level of improvement, right? This 38 slot improvement, especially just because of not being hot and garbage on offense. Like, just that should merit a significant improvement. And they were not just not hot garbage this year. They were decent. I think 81 is obviously weighted down by a lot of those turnovers and a lot of those just weird fumbles. And also sometimes the offense, like I don't think there was ever a time where I was like, the offense is seriously putting us at risk of not scoring in this game, which was different from 2019, where I thought that pretty frequently, to my own detriment. I think the key theme here is that this is what we expected. This was the improvement that we expected from the season. But boy, was it frustrating to get that improvement, especially because you could see and you knew just by watching these games that there was more improvement. You left improvement on the table. And we talked about this last week or the week before when we mentioned expected wins and second order wins, right? Um, like Tech underperformed its expected wins by I think 1.2 wins. They left a ton on the table versus Syracuse, and then in some of these later games like NC State and Pittsburgh, where they were in games, they just couldn't finish it out and finish the comeback. So that's sort of where you run into trouble, and that's the next step for next season and the season after that to win those 50-50s versus equal or slightly better teams.
Yep, I agree. And I think we will see a couple things break our way, and if we can clean up just one or two of the glaring things, I think that would make a world of difference. And I think they have it in their power to do that. So let's be positive going into 2021. Better than 2020, right?
Mm-hmm. The last thing I'll say, and you already brought it up, but I just want to emphasize like having an actual off season, and obviously we're still dealing with COVID, but having a knowing the conditions with which you can operate in COVID is a big deal for an off season because that at least allows you to know how much of an actual off season you can have, which will help the development of Jeff Sims as a quarterback immensely, especially when it comes down to timing with his receivers and timing on some of these mesh plays. That's where you saw a lot of the fumbles, a lot of the weirdness, and a lot of the picks where he just couldn't get the timing down. You know he has the arm talent. You know he has the decision-making capability as the timer goes off, and now we're into stoppage time. You know he has those soft skills. He just needs the timing to bring it all together with his offense. And I think having a semi-normal off season will really help him with that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay. Last bit of business before you wrap up here in stoppage time. The ACC went winless in bowl season. Does this matter?
No.
Okay. That's a good that's about what I was going to say, but care to expand instead of just give me a flat answer?
NC State was in spitting distance of a win. UNC until they completely imploded in the last 5 minutes without most of their offense. Whatever. Miami 3-point loss, not a big deal. What was I going to say? Who's the other one? Wake Forest. They kind of let it get away from them in the fourth quarter. That one.
And then the other two are the playoff games.
And the other two were playoff games. And I don't see you in the playoff other conferences. Don't mind Alabama, but Alabama is the SEC. You heard it here first. And Ohio State's really good too. So, I put almost no stock in it. I'm fairly certain Notre Dame would have won a game against any other team in the country besides the three that were ranked ahead of them. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. It's pandemic year. Some of our teams didn't play. You put Pitt in a bowl, they're going to mess up somebody's day. That, and they didn't. Things I think matter more. Let's not have giant brawls in the middle of bowls. That's bad.
Yeah, that's not great.
I'm trying to think of other things that matter. The Rose Bowl still matters, even though that one hurt to watch.
The granddaddy at the mall.
Yes. Let's see. Other things that still matter. Clearly not any other bowls if you're ESPN, because all they do is talk about the college football playoff. But you know what? All of it goes out the window. Next Monday, we're going to get to watch two really good teams play a game of football. Neither of them are our rivals. Alabama used to be, but lol, not anymore.
Alabama is forgiven for, keeping Athens out of any sort of meaningful competition for however long this has been going now.
Yep. Agreed. And then let's see. Yeah, no. Whoever wins on next Monday night, Athens loses. And that's okay. So, we'll take it. I think this was a weird year. And you also have to keep in mind, Dan Mullen, for how dumb his 2021 comment was, there's also a bit of a grain of truth in that, right? Like it's bowl season. It's inherently a little bit different. Every team faces a different kind of challenge. And this year's challenge were some of the most, I guess, interesting that we could face. So, you know, you kind of got to just take what you can get. I do have one more note that I realized too
Go
late.
for it.
Having thought about it after we already talked about golf and basketball, but we do actually have a men's golf and a indoor track and field schedule. So those seasons are happening. I believe track has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. That's last year's schedule. If I updated it to this year's schedule, we would have some. They're mostly the same as last year, except dropping the non-Clemson and Vanderbilt ones. So we will not be flying to Ames, Iowa, but that's probably for the best.
What a shame.
Golf, yeah. Golf looks a little more normal. I see a lot of familiar names on there, including some that are a little far. So stay safe, boys. Go win us a title.
Yeah. I got nothing to add there. Any other last minute items that you'd like to add?
Stay safe. Go Jackets. We're every day we get closer to baseball season. Every day we get closer to another. Hey, maybe we'll win a basketball game, and I think that's refreshing to focus on now that we can kind of get the. I don't know. It feels more normal now that giant weird football year isn't a thing anymore. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying there.
Even if the situation hasn't really changed, I think more of the classic reasons to love college sports are shining through and less of the unprecedented circumstance TM. So enjoy basketball, enjoy baseball, and if you see anything else, enjoy that too. And who knows, maybe next year we'll be talking about tech in a bowl game.
Hopefully. All right, that about does it for us tonight, listeners. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you very soon.